They threw him in without a word, just a hard push and the heavy door slammed shut behind him. The prison lights flickered as if even the walls didn't want him inside. The guards walked away laughing, their boots echoing down the metal hallway. No one had ever escaped from Black Star Prison. It floated in the shadow of a dead star, hidden from every known map. Built for the worst in the galaxy. Murderers, warlords, creatures too dangerous to kill. But now it had a new guest. A human. Named Kane. He didn't speak when they took him in. No shouting, no fear. He just stared straight ahead with calm, cold eyes. Some prisoners screamed on arrival. Others begged. A few tried to fight. But Kane. He walked in like he didn't care. Like this was just another room in a long hallway. Cell 9 was small, dark, and cold. It was near the edge of the prison where no natural light ever reached. The walls were thick, made of neutron steel. Cameras blinked silently from every corner. The guards watched him closely, hoping for something, fear, rage, maybe a breakdown. But Kane just sat on the metal bench and stared at the wall. Hours passed. He didn't move. By the next morning, the prisoners already had stories. They said Kane was a ghost, said he'd killed a whole battalion alone, that Earth had sent him here to get rid of him because even they couldn't control him. Most laughed it off. Just another rumor, just another human. Lunch came. All prisoners were marched to the mess hall in chains. The air smelled of blood, sweat, and spoiled meat. The strong took what they wanted. The weak got whatever was left, if anything. A beast named Grox, 3 meters tall with skin like stone, was the ruler of this place. He'd broken more necks than the guards could count. Today, he walked up to Kane, towering over him, and knocked the tray from his hands. Everyone watched. Kane looked up at him, then picked up the tray and calmly sat down again. Grox bared his fangs but didn't strike. That was strange. Grox always hit. That night, Grox didn't return to his cell. In the morning, the guards searched everywhere. They found only a single tooth, his covered in something like acid. The cameras had gone dark for 10 minutes during the night. Just 10 minutes. That was all it took. Whispers started. The human didn't leave his cell, the guards said. The door never opened. But Grox was gone. Not injured, not beaten, just gone. Like something had erased him from reality. They checked Kane's cell footage. He didn't move. Sat in the same spot the whole night. But when the guards looked closely, really closely, they saw something wrong with the shadows in his room. They moved when he didn't, like something else was there. One of the guards joked nervously, "Maybe Earth sent a monster in a man's skin." Another replied, "If that's true, then we're all dead." Day 2. Another prisoner vanished. A giant insectoid killer named Vreel. Gone from his cell, no struggle, no noise. The lock wasn't broken. The cameras failed again, just for 7 minutes this time. People started watching Kane like he was a ticking bomb. The guards kept their hands on their blasters. Even the toughest prisoners kept their distance. A technician went into Kane's cell to inspect the walls. He didn't come out, not whole at least. Now the fear was real. The warden, a 4-eyed alien named Clathor, watched the recordings over and over. Nothing made sense. Kane didn't move, didn't speak. And yet wherever he was, death followed. The air near his cell felt colder. The walls began to change color, stained with something like oil that wasn't oil. Living things started avoiding that hallway. Even the prison rats disappeared. No one wanted to admit it, but they were all thinking the same thing. Kane wasn't locked in with them. They were locked in with him. Guards argued about executing him. "Open the cell, blast him with plasma," one said, but the others shook their heads. "Open that door and you let him out," another whispered. Still, Kane just sat there. Still. Silent. Waiting. At night, the prisoners tried to stay awake, but no matter what they did, someone always fell asleep, and someone always vanished. Sometimes a scream was heard, sometimes only silence. The fourth night, a guard went mad. He shot the camera feeds, screaming that he saw something crawl out of Kane's mouth. He swore it wasn't a man in that cell. It was something hiding inside a man. The warden ordered a deep scan of Cell 9. The machines fried instantly, melted from the inside. Power flickered across the entire wing. That night, 5 more prisoners vanished. And Kane? He sat there, calm as ever, and smiled for the first time. The smile didn't reach his eyes, and that's when they realized, whatever he wasn't here to escape. He was here to feed. The mess hall was louder than usual. Forks scraped against metal trays, prisoners shouted over each other, and guards stood at every corner with their weapons ready. Fear hung in the air like smoke. Too many had disappeared in the last few nights. Everyone knew something was wrong, but no one dared to say it out loud. Kane walked in, silent as always. No chains this time. The guards stopped using them. They didn't want to get too close. He carried his food tray, sat at an empty table, and started eating slowly. Eyes followed him across the room. The chair next to him stayed empty, though. Every other seat was full. A creature named Murg stomped over. 8 feet tall, covered in thick red scales, and known for crushing skulls just for fun. He grinned with all 7 of his sharp teeth and slammed his fists on Kane's table. "Human," Murg growled. "You think you're scary?" Kane didn't look up. "You're not," Murg hissed. "You're just meat." Still no reaction. Murg leaned closer. "I'm going to rip you open and see what kind of coward bleeds inside." Kane lifted his eyes slowly. His face was calm. Too calm. "You can try," he said, voice quiet. "But I wouldn't." For a moment, the mess hall went silent. Then Murg roared and raised his fist. It never came down. Kane's hand shot up, faster than anyone could see, and grabbed Murg's wrist. A hiss filled the air, flesh burning. Murg screamed, fell to his knees. His arm was melting where Kane touched it. Guards ran in, pointing weapons, but no one dared shoot. Murg writhed on the floor. Kane stood, looked down at him, and spoke in that same calm voice. "I warned you." Then he turned, sat back down, and continued eating like nothing happened. Murg crawled away, whimpering, his arm half gone. That was the last time anyone challenged Kane in public. But the real horror came later that night. In the East Wing, 5 prisoners were locked in their cells, including Murg. He was still crying from the pain, whispering something about burning from the inside. At 03:17 prison time, the cameras in that hallway blinked off for 6 minutes. When they came back, all 5 cells were empty. Only a smear of something thick and black was left behind, trailing down the hallway. Back towards cell 9. Guards were shaking when they reviewed the footage. One of them refused to watch it again. Said he saw something moving in the shadows, something that crawled across walls without making a sound. The warden ordered Kane be questioned. A psychic from the Creel species was brought in. Mind readers trained for war, able to tear secrets from brains like pulling teeth. She stepped into Kane's cell. No one knows what he said. No one knows what she saw. But 5 minutes later, she ran out screaming. Blood poured from her eyes. She clawed at her own head, shouting, "It's not human! It's not human!" She died before she reached the med bay. After that, no one went into cell 9 again. The prison fell into a strange silence. Fewer prisoners talked. Meals were quiet. Even the loudest beasts began to whisper. They started locking their own cells at night. The guards doubled their patrols. Drones scanned every hallway. It didn't help. Each night, more vanished. Some cells were empty. Some were filled with strange marks, like teeth had bitten into solid metal. The worst was cell 31. The inmate inside had written something on the wall before he disappeared. Scratched into the steel with his own claws. He doesn't kill. He eats. Kane never left his cell during the day. Guards confirmed it. Cameras confirmed it. But something else did. The prison AI, the system that controlled everything, started. to glitch. It would report Kane in multiple places at once, sometimes in 2, sometimes in 5, for a few seconds each, then back to cell 9. The AI's voice grew strange, too. It began whispering things during the night shift, words no one understood, numbers, coordinates, warnings. One guard, a young Galtan officer, asked the warden, "What if Kane isn't just a prisoner?" The warden, pale and tired, looked him in the eye. "He's not." The officer didn't return the next day. By the end of the week, 17 more inmates had vanished. No blood, no struggle, no answers. And every time the lights flickered, every time the air got colder, they all knew who would be smiling calmly in his cell, waiting for the next one. Kane. Warden Clathor had seen many things in his long career. Riots, mutinies, even a black hole experiment gone wrong inside a prison lab. But never fear like this. Not from killers, not from warlords, not even from the guards. This fear was different. It wasn't fear of punishment. It was fear of something they couldn't understand. Kane. He was still in cell 9. Always quiet. Always still. But the death count kept rising. 31 prisoners gone. 7 guards missing. 2 drones melted. And now, the AI system refused to run scans near Kane's cell. It called that area contaminated. The prison wasn't stable anymore. Lights flickered across entire wings. Electric doors refused to open or opened by themselves. Water systems failed. Food printers made nothing but black, tasteless sludge. The air smelled strange, like old blood and burnt metal, and through it all, Kane sat, unbothered, calm, hungry. Clathor called a secret meeting, just 6 trusted officers. He spoke in a whisper, though the walls were supposed to be soundproof. "He is not what we were told," Clathor said, staring at a shaking glass of water. This was not a normal transfer. One of the officers, Lieutenant Vex, slammed his fist on the table. "He's a human. What's wrong with all of you? They sent him here because they couldn't handle him. He's dangerous, yes, but he's just a man." Clathor's eyes narrowed. "He's not." The others looked down, silent. Clathor showed them something. Recording. Not from the prison, but from a deep lab on Mars. It showed Kane, chained, locked in a chamber, surrounded by scientists in heavy suits. They were running tests, cutting samples, drawing blood. Then, without warning, Kane looked straight at the camera. The power in the lab failed. Everyone inside died. The footage turned black. The last thing seen was a shadow behind Kane, and a voice whispering, "This shell is only a door." The file was marked, "Top secret. Do not unseal." But Clathor had unsealed it anyway. And now he understood. Kane wasn't the danger. What was inside him was, that night, the guards refused to do patrols near Cell 9. They placed an auto turret near the hallway, hoping it would stop anything from coming out. But the turret melted the next morning. The metal turned to black goo. Its gun was missing, like it had been eaten. Inside the cells, panic grew. The prisoners didn't care about gang rules anymore. They didn't fight each other. They didn't steal food. All they cared about was distance, from Cell 9. But distance didn't help. Kane's reach was growing. Cell 14, 3 blocks away, turned to ash overnight. No fire, no heat, just ash. And the inmate inside? Gone. Clathor made a final decision. Kill Kane. Now, he ordered a Class 9 purge, full-force weapons, drones, flame units. "Plasma bolts! All guards, to Sector 9, the AI called out, but no one moved. They didn't want to go. So Clathor went himself. 7 elite guards followed. They stood outside Cell 9, weapons ready. Kane stood up when the door unlocked. He looked. At them, calm. Clathor gave the command, fire, and they did. 10 full seconds of light and sound, fire, plasma, screams. When the smoke cleared, Kane was still standing, not hurt, not angry, smiling. One of the guards dropped his weapon and ran. The others were frozen. Clathor stepped back. Kane spoke for the first time in days. "You should not have opened the door." Then the shadows behind him moved. Something crawled out. It wasn't human. It wasn't alive. It was hunger wearing a body. The guards screamed. One fired again. Another dropped to his knees. The lights shut off. Darkness swallowed Sector 9. No one made it out. Hours later, the power returned. The hallway was empty. No bodies. No weapons. Only one thing remained. The door to cell 9, wide, open, and Kane, gone. The rest of the prison went into lockdown. Sirens screamed. Emergency lights blinked red. The AI gave one warning across all speakers. Containment failed. Now the prisoners had a new fear. Kane wasn't locked away anymore. He was somewhere inside with them. No doors could stop him. No weapons could hurt him. They had thought this was a prison. Now they knew. It was a hunting ground, and Kane was starving. Panic took over the prison. After Cell 9 opened, nothing felt safe. The alarms didn't stop. The lights kept flickering. The AI voice had changed. It no longer sounded calm and robotic. Now it whispered. Sometimes it laughed. And sometimes it cried. Prisoners who had once ruled their cell blocks now huddled, in corners. The strongest gangs broke apart. Even the beasts from Death Sector stayed silent. Warden Clathor was gone. His badge was found lying in front of Kane's empty cell. No blood, no body, just the badge and deep scratch marks across the floor like something had been dragged away. The guards were leaderless. Half of them quit. The other half stopped, patrolling. They locked themselves in the command tower and watched Kane's movements, what little they could see. Kane wasn't hiding anymore. He walked openly through the halls now, doors unlocked for him, lights turned off wherever he passed. Surveillance. Drones refused to follow him. The last one that tried burst into flames. Prisoners began whispering a new name. Not Kane, not human. They called him the Hunger. At first, no one knew why. But then they saw what he left behind. Bodies, but not eaten. Emptied. Like something had drained the life from inside. Some weren't dead. Not exactly. They sat against the walls, eyes wide, mouths open, whispering to things only they could see. When touched, they screamed. Not from fear, but from memory. One inmate named Torga lasted 3 days after seeing Kane up close. On the 4th day, he peeled the skin from his face and said, "He showed me what's real. We are the meat. We were always the meat." He didn't survive the night. Down in the lower levels, strange things began to happen. Gravity shifted, sometimes sideways, sometimes straight up. One entire cell block was stuck to the ceiling for half a day. Time didn't work properly either. A guard swore he saw Kane enter a hallway, then exit again 5 seconds earlier. The AI tried to explain, then glitched out mid-sentence. On level 6, something worse happened. A new prisoner arrived. No one remembered ordering it. No ship logged the arrival. But the creature inside was already screaming before the door opened. It begged to be sent back. Said it had seen the eye in the dark. It clawed its own chest open, trying to remove something it believed Kane had planted inside it. It died an hour later. Its body turned to dust. By then, only one place was still holding. The core. A deep section under the prison, sealed off decades ago. It had old tech, no AI, just thick steel, simple cameras, and no automatic doors. A few guards, some scientists, and 13 prisoners managed to get inside. They closed the gates and shut everything off. No signals, no scans, no lights. They hoped Kane wouldn't find them. They were wrong. On day 12, one of the prisoners inside, the core started drawing, not with hands. He carved symbols into the walls, with his eyes closed. When asked, he said Kane was dreaming, and they were inside the dream. The scientists tried to erase the marks, but they always came back. One of the guards went mad. She laughed nonstop for 2 days before dropping dead. Her last words were, "He's not alone." That night, the lights flickered, even though the power was off. Then came the knocking. From the walls, from the ceiling, from the floor. Slow, heavy, hungry, and then silence. For a moment, everyone inside thought it had stopped, until they heard breathing, not from behind the door, but from inside the room. Kane was standing in the corner. They hadn't seen him enter. He looked at them. Calm. Empty. The guard raised his weapon and fired. The bullets never reached him. They stopped in midair, frozen, then turned around, the room filled with screams. The footage from that moment cut out. When the system came back online 12 minutes later, the core was empty. No, people. No lights. Just one message carved into the wall with a human fingernail. There is no escape, not from what we feed. The AI tried to send the message to outside worlds, but it was blocked. Something had taken control of the signal tower. From that point on, the prison became silent. From the outside, it looked normal. Lights on, security system running. Even guard reports still sent out, but inside, no one was alive. Except Kane. And something else. Something waiting. Watching. Feeding. The prison was never meant to hold it. Now it had become part of it, a new kind of trap. And far away, on Earth, the people who had sent Kane to this prison received a final message, just 4 words: he's ready, we're not. Far away from the prison, Earth Command finally noticed something was wrong. The routine check-ins had stopped. The last message they received was strange, short, and chilling. He's ready, we're not. At first, they thought it was a glitch, but then 3 different scout ships were sent to orbit the prison. None returned. No signals, no images. Just nothing. It was like the prison had vanished, but their sensors still showed it floating in the same place. Perfectly normal. Too normal. One commander, General Reyes, remembered Kane. He had signed the order to send him away. Reyes was a hardened man. He'd seen war, betrayal, planetary collapse, but when he saw Kane's profile again, his hands started shaking. "I told them we should have destroyed him," he whispered. A scientist beside him looked confused. "He was just a soldier, sir, a dangerous one, but—" "No," Reyes said. "He wasn't just a soldier. He was a weapon we never understood." The military called for an emergency meeting. Leaders from every human colony joined. Some wanted to ignore it. Others wanted to bomb the prison from orbit, but the scientists warned them. "We don't know what Kane has become. If we attack, we might wake it up." "Wake what up?" someone asked. The room went silent. No one had an answer, but deep inside, everyone felt it. Kane was no longer just a man. He was becoming something else, something worse. Back at the prison, things continued to change. The structure grew from the inside. New walls, new corridors, some twisted, some alive. Cameras stopped working. Gravity bent in random directions. Time skipped, and still, no signs of life. Just one figure, walking the halls. Kane. Sometimes he wasn't alone. Shadows moved beside him. They had no form, no face, just presence, hunger, like echoes of something ancient. One day, a drone from a nearby mining station passed by. It recorded one image before its systems crashed. The photo showed the prison, but it wasn't the same shape anymore. It had grown extra towers, metal tendrils, parts that looked organic, alive. It wasn't a prison now, it was becoming a nest. Earth Command saw the photo. Panic spread fast. They sent a warning to every system. "Do not approach the prison. Avoid Sector 13. Blackout protocol engaged." But Not everyone listened. A group of scavengers, hearing rumors of an abandoned station, flew in. They wanted to steal tech, sell weapons, find gold. What they found was silence, no resistance, no guards. They entered through a side hatch. Inside, it was dark, cold, wet. The walls pulsed like they were breathing. One of the scavengers, Grell, touched the wall. It whispered, "Back." He turned around and shot his own team, then sat down, smiling, and waited. By the time Earth picked up their emergency signal, it was too late. The prison had grown again, bigger, wider, and now it was moving. Slowly. Not much. Just a few meters, but enough to show it wasn't trapped anymore. It was changing, transforming, becoming something that could travel, something that could reach Earth. Inside the structure, Kane stood before a giant black mass. It pulsed like a heart. He knelt, and it spoke. Not in words, but in thoughts. It was old, older than stars. It had waited inside him, hiding, feeding on war, hate, rage. Now finally, it had a body. And Kane was only the beginning. The next step would be Earth. Far below the prison, inside a hidden vault, one human still lived. Her name was Dr. Erin Vale. She had survived by hiding in the old tunnels, without light, food, or sound. She recorded everything she saw. Her final message was sent through, a secret emergency line. It said, "This is Dr. Vale. If you hear this, do not send help. Do not come here. Kane is no longer human. This place is no longer a prison. It is a seed, and it is growing." Then the signal ended. Earth Command shut down the transmission. They looked at each other, horrified, and one final question hung in the air like poison. What happens when Kane is no longer inside the prison because the prison is now inside him? The prison moved again. This time, it wasn't just drifting. It was steering, slowly, carefully, like it was testing its strength. The metal skin of the station twisted, growing spires and black veins that pulsed like nerves. People watching from distant satellites said it looked alive, because it was. Inside, Kane stood in a chamber that didn't exist before. The walls were smooth, black, and wet, like the inside of something that used to breathe. His eyes were no longer human. They glowed, faint red. His skin pulsed with shadows, like something under it was crawling, awake, and waiting. He didn't speak. He hadn't spoken in days. He listened. The thing inside him whispered now, not with words, with hunger. It wanted more, and Kane was ready to feed it. Back on Earth, military leaders tried to prepare. Ships were launched, weapons tested, special teams trained for missions they didn't understand. No one had ever fought a prison that had become a predator. They didn't even know where to strike. One group, Black Sun Unit, was sent to make contact. Not to fight, just to observe, to try and understand what Kane had become. The ship carried 20 of the best soldiers and one old man, Dr. Elric Rain, a mind reader enhanced by deep core tech. Rain had warned them, "You don't make deals with what lives in Kane. You don't talk to it. You don't even think near it. Just watch and run." They didn't listen. The mission was a disaster. The moment the team entered orbit, the prison shifted again. Long arms, like tendrils of living metal, lashed out and wrapped around their ship. They tried to escape. The engines failed. Time bent inside the ship. Some soldiers aged years in seconds. Others reversed, bones shrinking, minds crumbling. Rain screamed and clutched his head. "He sees us. He's learning." The ship crashed into the prison hull. Only one transmission got out. Just a voice. Rain's voice. "It's not Kane anymore." "It's older than him. Older than all of us. He didn't escape. He opened the door. And now it's hungry." The message ended with static. Earth Command held an emergency blackout, but it was too late. Every listening station across the colonies had picked up Rain's last words, and panic spread. In one outer colony, people began evacuating even though the prison was still far away. In another, a cult formed, worshipping Cain as a god. They believed he had become the mouth of the dark. On Earth, scientists worked day and night. They tested old myths, ancient signals, anything they could find. One discovery stood out. Thousands of years ago, before Earth even had cities, a signal had come from deep space. A warning. It was written in strange, broken energy waves, but translated, it said, "It sleeps in flesh. Never feed it war." They hadn't listened. Humanity had made Cain the perfect soldier, and now they had fed it enough war. Back in the prison, something new happened. A door opened, one that hadn't existed before. Beyond it was not a room, but a sky. Stars. Empty. Space. A new path. Cain stepped toward it and smiled. The prison groaned, shaking. The outside metal cracked, then healed, then cracked again. It wasn't just moving anymore. It was growing wings. Energy flared across its hull. Engines that weren't built, just grown. Powered by something not nuclear, not solar, but by fear. From all the people watching, from all the minds thinking of Cain, the fear made it stronger, made him stronger. Soon it would fly. Soon it would reach Earth. But first, Cain turned and looked. Back inside, a small light blinked on a far wall. A survivor. Someone had made it all this time. A little boy, hiding inside a food storage locker. Cain walked over, silent. The boy looked up at him, shaking. Instead of running, he asked in a soft voice, "Are you going to eat me?" Cain stared for a long moment, then said his first words in daze. "No, not you." He touched the boy's forehead. The shadows didn't swallow him. They passed through him, like he wasn't what they wanted. Cain turned away. The boy whispered, "What are you?" Cain didn't answer. He just walked back to the open sky and stepped through. Behind him, the prison's engines came to life, and Earth's final warning went out. He's coming, but not alone. The stars didn't shine the same anymore. Not after Cain moved. He was no longer a prisoner, no longer just a man. He had become something the universe had tried to bury long ago, something that once destroyed galaxies by simply existing. Now, he flew toward Earth, and the prison flew with him. It wasn't a ship anymore. It was a part of him. A living weapon, a nest of whispers and claws. Shadows leaked from its hull, stretching across space like black smoke. On Earth, sirens never stopped. Cities were locked down, fleets were launched. Satellites tracked the prison's every move. Leaders argued, scientists warned, priests prayed, but no one knew what to do, because this wasn't just war. This was something worse. Humanity had always believed they were tough, smart, adaptable. They survived everything, but they had never faced something that understood fear better than them. The thing inside Cain, whatever it truly was, didn't come to destroy cities. It came to consume hope and feed on despair. As the prison entered, the solar system, Earth's final defense line prepared, hundreds of ships, AI-controlled drones, railguns powered by Earth's core, missiles that could break moons. They stood between Cain and home. Cain didn't slow down. He walked through the halls of the living prison, calm, silent. Around him, things moved in the shadows. Creatures made of old pain, faces stretched from walls, screams looped in reverse. He reached the center, a pulsing core, black and red, alive. He placed his hand on it, and everything stopped. Time, sound, even light. Across space, every human ship lost power. Every screen went dark. Every weapon silenced. Cain's voice echoed in every speaker, every radio, every mind. Simple words. "I gave you a chance. You threw me away. Now you'll see what you really are." He let go of the core, and the prison fired a pulse. Not a weapon, a memory. It forced every human to see what Cain saw in his cell, those years of silence, betrayal, pain. The fear, the hunger, the forgotten screams. Billions saw it in their minds. Some fell to their knees, others screamed. A few changed, because that was Cain's gift now. He could show people the worst in themselves and feed off their reaction. But in one small lab far below Earth's surface, someone didn't fall. A girl. Young. Quiet. Sharp. Her name was Lyra. She wasn't a soldier. Just a tech assistant. But she had read Cain's old files. Every report. Every test. Every mistake. And she saw something no one else did. Cain wasn't just infected. He was still human. Deep inside. Trapped. Buried. Fighting. The monster didn't create Cain. The humans did. And maybe, just maybe, he could be reached. Lyra sent a message through an old frequency Cain once used in the army. It was simple. It said, "I'm sorry. Not all of us forgot you. I remember who you were." There was no reply. Then, the prison stopped, right before Earth's defense line. Cain stood still, for the first time, confused. He heard her voice. Dead. Wasn't loud. It wasn't angry. It was soft. And for a moment, just a second, the thing inside him pulled back. The shadows paused. The prison groaned. Something cracked, and Cain fell to his knees. He whispered a name no one had heard in years. Lyra. The darkness around him screamed in rage. The creature inside tried to take back control. The prison twisted, broke, screeched like a dying star. But it was too late. Cain was awake, and he was angry. Not at Earth, at what he had become. He stood one, last time, and walked to the prison core. The creature begged, promised him power, freedom, endless war. Cain smiled and said, "I was human before you. I'll die human too." Then he ripped the core apart with his bare hands. The prison exploded. In silence, no fire, just gone. In space, light returned. Ships powered up again. On Earth, the skies cleared, and Cain was no more. But his name remained, carved in stone, written in data, whispered in stories. The man who became a monster, and then destroyed it, not to save the world, but to save what little piece of himself was left. The last line in his file was changed. It read, Cain, soldier, weapon, monster, hero, and Earth never forgot him again.